Well, working remotely became part of the course during COVID lockdowns. Some people liked it, others wanted to get back into the office. Has it made, though, things easier for cyber criminals to intercept our communications, in particular from voice and messaging apps? The Australian Security Summit, or AUSEC as it's known, puts that problem and other evolving threats front and centre. My next guest is involved on helping governments to thwart these sorts of risks. Vice President of BlackBerry Secure Communications, David Wiseman, joins me now on a trip out from the States. Thanks for your time. I know it's a bit of a whirlwind trip. So, yeah, working from home is here. How much was that becoming a bit of a honeypot for people, knowing that people were not in an office, but there's more communication going on, and any way they can sort of intercept it, suddenly you've got more business communications like that happening?
Yeah, that was a major issue, particularly because it really opened up the attack space. You know, rather than most communications being done on internal, well-managed, protected corporate networks, it's now personal networks. And so there's that networking aspect, but then there's also the adoption of consumer-type technologies more and more when people are working remotely, whether that's, they're using more text messages, whether they're using consumer-grade messaging-type applications, file sharing.
Yeah, one of the scams I sort of heard repeated, because I guess people, they're managing things, maybe they're juggling kids or whatever it might be. So people started picking up the phone less. So it was some sort of message. And there were messages mimicking a boss saying, hey, can you quickly transfer this amount of money? And it no longer seemed a strange thing to say, that the best cyber hack is one that feels real.
Right. And one of the key risks there is really around identity. And how can you have confidence that, is that really your boss? And that's becoming more and more of a challenge with what we see in the generative AI space as well. So you really need to have systems in place that you can trust identity as well as protect the actual information.
And is this a big part of this on the company? And I mean, yes, companies, when you're working from home, sort of need to make sure things are safe. They can't blame, a worker bee, if you like, for that transfer gone wrong. But what about in a broader sense? Big companies need to step up more. In the UK, they're forcing companies and banks to be responsible for fraud. Is that more and more what it needs to be? Because we, the individual, don't have the resources. They have the resources to make sure these scam messages don't actually get through.
Yeah, I think there is a responsibility on the companies themselves to provide more protections, both for their employees and their customers, and protecting that information. But there is still, a burden on the employee to use common sense.
Yeah.
And some type of cyber communications hygiene. But the responsibility on the company or the government agency is to provide them the tools and the training they need to do that.
Have a quick look at the link, the domain name, and all that sort of stuff. Well, you're here telling people, but also governments, on various ways to combat crime and espionage as well. What's the thing you tell them that they're sort of most surprised about? I guess a lot of warnings we go, yes, we know we should do that, we need to do it more, but where people go, oh, really, do I have to do that?
I think there's a lot of surprise when people realize how vulnerable their mobile communications are, how easy it is to intercept cellular phone calls, how easy it is to get a hold of data that people are sharing, often very sensitive information inside of messaging applications.
When you say intercepting a call, what do you mean?
Literally the intercepting of a call. There's interception equipment can only be a couple $1,000s. Small machine can sit in a car on a street and listen into every single cell phone call that's taking place and capture every message. Yeah, that's kind of one example.
Just listening in and maybe hearing something they can. So people would. I mean, I would assume I'm not getting listened to. I'm not important enough. But you just never quite know.
You never know, and it can be both in terms of targeting particular people or targeting particular areas because of who might be working and communicating in that area.
The other thing I've read about what you're going to warn about is apps. I kind of assume when I'm on an app, I'm in a safe space almost. Like I'm pretty wary of a text. There's a link in this text. Oh, that seems a bit dodgy. But in an app, I just sort of relax. You're saying that. What's the danger within even apps, official apps that are on our phone?
Right. Well, there are risky apps where you don't really know what the heritage of that app is. But the bigger risk, even for a more trusted, verifiable
Your
app,
bank or whatever it might be,
is twofold. One is the app you have actually the trusted one, and there's been numerous cases of spoof bank apps, for example.
Right. You search the app and it somehow manages to get to the top of the search.
Right.
Maybe for an hour and people download it.
Right. And then the second part is you're in that app, you're in that contained environment, but what is the company that provides that service, provides that app, what are they actually doing with your data?
Which has been the huge one. I mean, Latitude Financial seems to be the hack that keeps taking in Australia. There was the initial issue with these credit cards, and now there's been a second wave, and people that have had a card sent out to them they haven't even used has been hacked again. Is that a bit of a concern that it could sort of happen a second way? That company had should have been a wake-up call, and now it's happening all over again?
Yeah, I think it's a concern both for companies that have been affected that could happen again, but also, for industry as a whole, because now, more people are aware of, hey, here's this type of attacks, and more people are going to try to start those type of attacks.
As what governments can do, I keep getting these warnings from experts such as yourself. If you get a link to pay something, don't do it. But some companies actually do that. And, I got a reminder the other day, I thought it was a dodgy one. They said, hey, you've got to pay for your couch or we're not going to deliver it. And I was like, oh, okay, that was a real message. The governments need to have better regulation around that, because we get warnings because dodgy links are so often taking our money, but companies still use it as a way to pay.
Yeah, well, consumers, you need to use common sense here a bit too, right? But at the same time, there's well-established rules and policies around credit card and debit transactions and protecting, consumers. And I think that needs to extend to some of the new digital payment platforms as well.
Because initially it was the convenience. So you go, great, send me a link, I'll pay it. Way easier even than email. But if you get a price of convenience on getting hacked every now and then, it's not really worth it.
Right. And that's really what BlackBerry's focused on over the past 40 years, is how do we protect the communications, protect the data in these mobile environments. And
that line between convenience and protection.
Convenience and protection, and trying to be as protecting as possible, and leveraging, new things such as AI and ML to help do that, encrypted communications, but doing it in a way that minimizes the burden on the user, that, that they don't feel like, there's a big impact to them, even though their protections are stronger.
All right, David Wiseman, appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you.